Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. Glad to have you aboard here this afternoon. The Edmonton Oilers on an off day after a not so great performance against, the Seattle Kraken last night. Unfortunately, the big guns together, there's plenty to talk about coming out of that game, and we won't do a full post game on it, but we will kind of do a recap to some degree, discussing some of the larger issues for the Oilers coming out of it. Obviously, Skinner gave up 3 goals, sub 900 save percentage. There's a ton to go on in that game, but we'll get through that as we get through the video today. So if you are new to the channel right now, friends, checking out Dolynny TV for the first time, I encourage you to consider hitting that subscribe button and come on back. Would be grateful to have you along for this crazy ride. So what I'm going to start you with here tonight is, of course, the waivers news from the NHL this morning, noon, whatever, coming down mountain time. Basically what we know is Xavier Bourgault, former Edmonton Oiler with the Ottawa Senators, now on waivers, one of the first cuts from camp here for Ottawa. And what we know about Bourgault is obviously he hasn't panned out from being that first round draft pick that we took him as how many ever years ago. That said, hey, you know what? I would have a place for him if you wanted to get claimed by the Oilers on waivers sometime tomorrow. So hey, I'd have a place, but that's not why we're talking about waivers. I'm burying the lead here a little bit. Connor Ingram is the name that everybody has taken a big look at here today. There's been some chatter that the Oilers are putting in a claim. There's been some chatter the Oilers aren't putting in a claim. There's some chatter that the Oilers, even if they did put in a claim, physically can't get them because other teams ahead of them in the pecking order will claim them. So I really don't care, because we'll do the math here. Work with me a little bit and we'll see what happens. For the Oilers to carry Connor Ingram, even if they went with a third goalie and had Picks, Stu, and Ingram hanging around, you're talking about having to at least get rid of Matthias Janmark, which I know we've talked about. And again, depending how you're viewing this preseason, you might have some predetermined outcomes there already in your mind about how that has to go. But 1.95 cap hit, you can't add that to the goaltending situation currently. And even if you get rid of a guy like Pickard right out of the gate, you're still strapping yourself so short on cash. It's not funny. So at 28 years old, 6'1", 218 for Connor Ingram. This is probably last year's measurements, probably. Again, not the biggest guy in net. A guy that I would say, to his credit, hasn't had the most success possible at the NHL level. He's been around since 2018, but been around since 2021 at the NHL level. And you look here, has never had a goals against average below 2.91. Yes, he had that magical run there for a little stretch with the Arizona Coyotes. He's had some issues here of late with injury and stuff, but again, it's not like you're getting a commodity that's even proven. He's had a grand total of 102 games in the NHL. I mean, Stuart Skinner's pretty much more proven than that. So at a 314 goals against average and a 902 save percentage, marginal improvement, if any, and probably none at all. And I don't mean to slam Connor Ingram here. It's just when you're looking as the Oilers to upgrade, I really don't see how a $1.95 million cap hit solves this issue the Oilers have with goaltending by adding Connor Ingram. So that's kind of where we stand on that. Again, I'd be surprised if it happens, and if it happens, I'm much more confused than I already am with how things are working with the Edmonton Oilers cap headed into the year. So color me surprised if it happens tomorrow, but with something to monitor, is that's kind of the buzz today. Really, if you're talking about rumors, that's the rumors today. Something I did want to mention, the Oilers got this up quite early today, and of course always a nice little moment to pause and share a smile with yourself. Of course, Joey Moss's 62nd birthday today, if he was still with us. So just a moment to pause and remember what Joey meant to us, and of course what he still means to the Edmonton Oilers and the organization we are all a fan of. So just figured I'd add that in there as well for you. So now, kind of, again, going with this burying the lead thing, let's get back to how I opened up the video here this evening. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, well, it came down yesterday that they are going to be paired together on a top line to start the season to offset the loss of Zach Hyman. Now, you already know the sensitivities around that. I need not tell you. Quite clearly, no coach in Edmonton since Connor and Draisaitl have been what they are have figured out how to separate the two and have success, and how to use the two together and have consistent success. So the difficulty here for the Oilers is this is a real big year where you're adding two young guys that need consistent playing time. So I get it, right? If you move Draisaitl up into the top line, that might allow Howard and Savoy to be on the second line, and now you solve that and you're taking them away from major defensive responsibilities on the first line. I get that, but I think that's kind of dreaming a little bit there too right now, kind of where the Oilers view both those players. And I mean, fine if you don't agree, but it is what it is, right? Like McDavid and Draisaitl, by far and above, being together is not the perfect solution. It's never been the solution. Building a team capable of supporting two stars with two players on each wing has been and always will be the solution. The Oilers, whether it be a coaching issue, whether it be a management issue, player personnel issue, or just to give a damn from the roster kind of issue, haven't been able to figure it out so far. And, when they do, it clips along pretty good. The Oilers, Yamamoto, Nugent-Hopkins, Draisaitl, that line was dynamite for a little while, right? But really outside of, a few lines having some here and there success, there's never been a moment. Yeah, Nugent-Hopkins, McDavid, and Hyman had some success too, but you're starting to see a common denominator between the two lines named that have had success. Is we're talking about how McDavid and Draisaitl being apart is the benefit, but Nugent-Hopkins is the big driver on both. Who would have known, right? Almost like we have another first round or first overall pick on this team that everybody hates for some reason when he doesn't get going enough. So injury front as well, I think this is, no matter what I just said, the injury front is ultimately what's going to dictate the coaching staff's success and early implementations of the changes from last year. So just right now, I wouldn't read too much into everything going on. I just simply sit there and, relax about it. See how the Oilers start. We got a reminder today on Oilers Now, and I forget already that it was that bad again last year. We started 2-5 last year. You started 0-3. So for the Oilers, if you're 3-3 out of the gate through the first 6 games, you're winning. That is a bright, positive outlook. So that'll be largely dependent on, again, the success of the roster on the other 3 lines and who is on the roster, because even as Bob Stauffer talked about the injury report today on Oilers Now, there's a lot of guys in Oilers camp right now nursing something, and it just seems like even that game I listened to against the Jets, somebody was going, I think it was Max Jones was out, and you just know it was Hyman's out. You got a couple other AHL guys gone. And it just seems to stack up this time of year a little by little, and we're only now 4 games into the preseason, so we got another 4 to go yet, and that's just where we're at. So now another thing I do want to talk about, because like I said, I let off, and we'll just come to me for a second here. The reason I let off kind of talking about Stuart Skinner letting in the 3 goals and a sub 900 save percentage is it'll really be a key factor for a lot of fans in how much leeway they want to give the coaching staff, how much leeway they want to give the roster, depending on the use and kind of pull and push of who goes in net night to night for the Edmonton Oilers. I think realistically, Stuart Skinner, at least early on, is going to have to earn the starter's crease back, at least the bulk share. I don't think that's unbeknownst to anyone that Stu's got to perform good. Not saying that he won't get more starts than Pickard, but I think this is the year, at least early on, to expect, based on the results in the playoffs, Calvin Pickard gets a more substantial share of starts, and especially how the coaching staff dictates that, how they decide to shape that, and how they decide to utilize that, especially with the road-heavy schedule in the first bit of the year here, will be very interesting for me to watch, and kind of will summarize some of my big brain galaxy stuff when you're talking about how do I view the coaching staff in 25-26, considering some new guys on the bench as well and a new goaltending coach. And one thing I'd also say about the coaching staff, I think to summarize everything that goes together here, is a slow preseason, I think would be a different outcome this year than last year, right? Last year was a brutal preseason. You've already watched the Oilers. They're 2-1-1 on the preseason this year. Despite the bad game against Seattle, and this is where we're getting into the post game a little bit here, I promised you. Despite the bad game against Seattle, I'll tell you, this has been a much improved preseason. I'd say, right, that win down in Calgary was a big W in the column for the Oilers in the preseason compared to last year. The Winnipeg Jets game, getting the job done there. And I think, too, another major thing for me is you're watching the guys battling for spots, really winning and losing. That is huge. Noah Philp, that game against Winnipeg, huge. Atro Leppinen, I think everybody and their cousin has Atro Leppinen going to Bakersfield. That is the clear path. That is what should happen. There is no reason to get excited because of his preseason performance of him making the NHL squad. Fair enough. I haven't seen anyone saying, man, he's in. The way he's gone through these first 4 games, he's in. No, which is great. But again, seeing guys that have potential, seeing guys like a Quinn Hudson and guys like Leppinen and guys that are just coming in and really trying to make that first big impression on the Oilers. It's been an absolutely phenomenal camp for that. And to be honest with you, other than Noah Philp last year, I don't think there was anyone that really blew socks off for everybody. And like I said, my impression of David Tomashik, we'll get that eventually. Right away in that first period I watched up in Edmonton, almost a week ago, it was fantastic to see him just be a shot first guy on a line that, he was on the top line and he was ripping pucks. So it really is going to come down for the Oilers. All of this coaching stuff that, whatever you want to get uppity about here in the preseason is I'm fine with a slower preseason. A slow preseason like last year, absolutely unacceptable. But it would take an atrocious amount of terrible play in the next 4 games to outdo the terrible pace of last year's preseason. And the rest of everything else, it'll come with time, right? The goalie handling, that's just a test of how the coaching staff views the early part of the schedule. I mean, the injury front, it happens to everybody in training camp. You've seen Jamie Benn, you've seen Barkov today. It happens to everybody. We're no different. And I think, too, for the McDavid-Draisaitl situation, the Oilers will always fall back to that. It doesn't matter who the coach is. So to get up about that with Hyman out, maybe, a little bit too much to do about nothing. But with Hyman back in November, then see what happens when the line's even out. Specifically, who's out at that point, who's gotten called up, who's hot, who's not. That's it. That's all. And we'll see what happens. But I think that's a pretty heavy bunch of topics here to discuss on a random Thursday in oil country. And I like to see that. So stay tuned, friends. We'll have anything further if there's more news today. Hopefully the Blue Jays regrab the AL East lead. You'll probably see a post game on my side of that here tonight. Simply, I've had a blast, following the Blue Jays this summer. I said I wasn't getting into it until they were serious about winning. Then all of a sudden they were serious about winning this year. So, we'll get back to it. The division lead currently sitting not so great, but hey, big game against the Red Sox tonight. See what happens. For right now, though, I'm up on out of here. Have yourself a great night. On your way out, leave a like on the video. Thanks for being here. I'm up on out of here.